Why, hello, everyone. Welcome to Joleen's Happy Time Craftcast. I am so excited to welcome you today to this episode where today's guest is kind of a big deal. But before I pull her out, just a few announcements and things that I need to let you know about. Big Raven Farm. Wow. Thank you all so much for what has been an incredible season of retreats so far. And if you've been thinking about joining us for one of our art, yoga, or food retreats, I want to encourage you to head on over to bigravenfarm.com because things are selling out, which is exciting and wonderful, but we don't really have a whole lot of room left. So if you've been thinking about joining us in 2025, scootily doot on over there because there, honest to goodness, isn't a whole lot left. Which, it's a great problem to have. And thank you all so much for that. I really, really do appreciate it. So thank you. Other announcements, we've got a retreat starting tomorrow. We've got 14 folks coming in from all over the place. And so we are very excited to welcome them when they arrive. This one is a pick your projects retreat. So they get to choose from a list of about 30-ish different projects to pick from. And so we're very excited to welcome them tomorrow. And you know what? It's kind of an interesting one because we've got 6 people who are returning. They've been here before. And then we also have a multi-generational opportunity for people in that my mother will be in attendance as one of the participants, along with one of her best friends. Yeah. And my youngest daughter, Georgie. So we're going to have like a little generational sandwich there with my mom and my daughter. So for those of you who will be with us, hold on. I imagine it will only be amazing and lovely. So anyway, so that's coming up tomorrow. Alrighty. Let me tell you about today's guest. I know I say it every time, and you can trust me. I'm not full of nonsense when I tell you this, but Kay Woodman-Maynard, kind of a big deal. She is an author, a cartoonist, and a comics coach, and she is known for graphic novels that explore self-expression, including an acclaimed adaptation of Tuck Everlasting. Just recently, if you read People magazine or Hollywood Reporter or some of those, you might have seen her name in there. And we're going to ask her more about that. She is a Harvard grad and a former animator. She writes the Creating Comics newsletter, helping artists create more and self-judge less. Sign me up for that, please. And she just is very encouraging, and she encourages to get this done one post at a time. So I know you will do a really great job, as you always do, of welcoming Kay Woodman-Maynard to the Happy Time Craftcast. Hello there.
Hi, Joleen. So nice to be here.
Okay, so let's just start. People magazine, Hollywood Reporter. Oh my gosh, what happened?
Well, Alexis Bledel, who is
Rory
Gilmore,
yeah,
from Gilmore Girls, she also played Winnie Foster, who's the protagonist of Tuck Everlasting in a 2002 movie. And my publisher, Macmillan, got her to read the audiobook of Tuck Everlasting, which is so exciting. I was a big Gilmore Girls fan.
Yes.
So now I see my name associated with Alexis Bledel in these articles, which is just so exciting. And they just released her, like a clip of her reading the opening chapter.
Oh my gosh. So emotionally, what were you feeling when, so if you're just joining us, Alexis Bledel is reading your adaptation graphic novel audio book of Tuck Everlasting, right?
Not quite. So she's reading the original book. So that it's based on. And I'm just riding on the coattails of that.
Okay. They're lovely coattails. Good job.
So I just see it as 2 degrees of separation away from her.
Yes, definitely. So as an artist, right, you enter into this space in a primary medium of watercolor and illustration. Would that be correct?
I would say comics and watercolor. Just there's a distinction, meaning that illustration is usually either stand alone,
Sure.
like one image, or it's an image with a lot of text, whereas comics tends to be sequential storytelling where you have a lot of images telling a story.
So how did you come to choose Tuck Everlasting?
Well, so I also did an adaptation of The Great Gatsby, which came out a couple of years ago, and the publisher ended up approaching me and asking if I'd be interested, and I was thrilled, but I wasn't sure. Like, I couldn't quite remember the book. Like, I was pretty young when I read it, like 10. And so I went and ran over to the local bookstore and bought it. And I was nervous because it's like a big opportunity, but I also remember like loving the book, but feeling really betrayed by it and like angry. And so I read it and I loved it. Thank goodness. Like, again, and it just like resonated so strongly. But I understand why I felt angry and betrayed, because it deals with the cycle of life and death and what would happen if you lived forever, and then what happens, if you die. And so it's a hard thing at any age to deal with, but I think especially as a kid, it's kind of shocking.
It did kind of surprise me then and now that it is the target is 10, and and I'm like, those are some pretty adult themes emotionally, but what an incredible story. For those of you who might not know, so Tuck drinks from a well and is given everlasting life. And then he meets and eventually falls in love with, meets a young woman. And she drinks from the well.
So I think so there's some differences between the book, which is what I was adapting from, and the movie. So in the book, the protagonist is 10, and in the movie, she's 16. So that's why there's no love in the book between the 17-year-old boy and the 10-year-old girl. But his whole family, the whole Tuck family, accidentally drank from this spring.
Okay. A spring, not a well, a spring. Okay.
Yes, but this is common because people saw this so long ago that it's really hard to remember. And so basically Winnie finds out their secret kind of accidentally, and they kidnap her because they need to tell her why she can't share this with the world. And then she has to make the decision whether to drink from it or not. And so that's kind of the
wow. Well, I was very lucky to receive a viewing, I guess, of the book, and it's beautiful. Like, it is a really beautiful, I mean, even if you are not a collector of graphic novels, or if that hasn't really been your thing, like, this would be a good place to start, because people who appreciate art and watercolor and storytelling, I think, will really identify with. It's just so beautiful. I mean, and it's like, what, 230 pages or something?
Yeah, it's a lot of watercolor pages.
Yeah, it is a ton.
Substantial, definitely. Yeah.
Look at that. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you're holding it. How do you feel? What are your emotions here?
I mean, honestly, to some degree, I'm like, oh no, I opened to a bad page.
Oh. No way. No. Okay, other than that.
On the other hand, I'm like, I'm so proud of it. And it also it's just kind of remarkable to me with any graphic novel, just the amount of work involved.
Oh my God.
That I finished it and that it's coming out in the world and that people are seeing it is just kind of a miracle, it feels like.
Right. So, okay, so I was noticing, so on each page of the novel, there are lots of, in comics, are they called cells?
Panels.
There are lots of panels. So when you were creating those panels, are we all on one page, or are we, so like, as I'm looking at a page, is that how you created it, or are they all then later put together?
No, I create it and I plan out the page spread. So the left and right side by side.
Yep.
So that compositionally it all works together. And so I'm doing the planning digitally. I use Clip Studio Paint and I draw on a Cintiq drawing tablet because I tend to work very iteratively and I make tons of changes as I work. And so I like doing it digitally then. And then what I do is, once that's kind of figured out for the whole book, then I print out the final line art on watercolor paper.
And then you get to paint
and
it.
then I watercolor it.
Okay. Okay. So the size that we see it is the size in which you created it.
It's smaller. So I
Ooh.
make it bigger.
Yeah.
And then just size it down. And in comics, generally that's what you do because it looks better, because it can kind of capture more details. And also people read the book pretty close to their face.
Yeah.
And so that's something you have to kind of think about.
It's just, I mean, when you think about the logistics and the amount of time and like the talent and the expertise and the folk, I mean, it is an incredible undertaking. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I can't wait for my own copy to arrive. So I mean, I know, but will you tell people how they can get their copy?
Sure. So it's available. Yeah. It's available online wherever books are sold. Just look up Tuck Everlasting, the graphic novel. And it's also, if you want a signed copy, they can ship anywhere in the US. You can head over to Red Balloon Bookshop. They are a bookshop in St. Paul, where I actually went when I was a kid and listened to like Jan Brett and Tommy DePaula, do their author visits. And so that's where I'm going to be doing my author visit on September 2nd for the book launch. And so they're selling signed copies. So if you order now, it'll ship around September 2nd.
That is really exciting. And we love supporting, local businesses at St. Paul, Minnesota. And that's just it's really exciting. You talk a little bit about mindset, right? And in your introduction, I know there was something about the way that you are able to help your graphic novel coaching clients with letting go of perfectionism. But yet, when you opened your book, you had your own little whoop. This might not be the best page. So talk to us a little bit about and you're not alone. Like I do it too. I do it all the time. So what are some of your thoughts on this, on the perfectionism that a lot of us feel with our art practice, even if it's not intended to be in a published book?
Yeah, this is something I think so much about, as you say, because I have these tendencies. And I think recently I've been trying to reframe the perfectionism as not always a negative thing. Like that I have moments like now with my book launch approaching, I'm noticing my perfectionism is like, woo, really high.
Of course.
But I try to view it some of the time as just being like ambitious and wanting excellence and seeing it, like at those periods when it's healthier and it's not stopping me from creating. But I think with so many creators that I work with, I notice that it just stops them from ever putting things down on the page. And so, I tend to work really iteratively. So I'll tell myself things and my clients, just like, this is just a draft. Like, just, get it out there and then you can see what's working and what isn't working. But if it stays stuck in your brain, you can't see that. It's like perfect in your brain, but I'm a big believer in finishing too. So like getting it out into the world. And even if it's just onto, it doesn't necessarily mean shared with the world, but just, from your brain onto a piece of paper.
Right.
So that's one way. And then I often find that constraints help so much with perfectionism, just giving myself like, okay, you can only tell this story in 4 panels, which like things like that, or you can only use 2 colors to create this page, because that just cuts down all that decision making of like, what's the right decision? And you can still do that, what are the right colors to choose, but it still just limits it way down. Yeah.
Well, I have been I've been dabbling lately in painting different kinds of paper. Like I've got some, did you know this is a thing? I have tea bag paper. Right. So I didn't know that was a thing. But I got that. So I have tea bag paper, like deli sheet, pattern paper that, sewing dressmaker pattern paper, and I've been painting it and then using that in collage. But what I've been doing, to your point, is I've been limiting the number of colors that I use. So like limited palette, just limited palette, because I feel like I struggle with color because I work primarily with books, and it's kind of a risk for me because I feel like sometimes my color choices, ruin it. So I love this idea of limited scope, limited parameters, limited palettes, just kind of get out there and dabble and try. And so I would imagine too that when people talk to you about graphic novel work or watercolor, you must have some thoughts on, like, what do you try? How do you start? How do you get over this overwhelm of all the options, all the colors, all the things?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I recommend to creators is to do diary comics, like if they're trying to create more, and that just means like a comic of your day, right? Like you choose something that happened in your day, and it could be just like how much you love sitting in your hammock,
Right.
or it could be what you had for breakfast. Like it doesn't have to be a big event.
Note to self: buy hammock. Yeah.
I just did, and it's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so I find that when you create something, you view it as a diary, which generally you don't share. And so, and also the other part of diary comics is I'm often processing emotions through it.
Sure.
So like if I had something that was upsetting or exciting, like I make a little comic about it. And these are just something that I do before I go to bed. And they're probably just like 15, 20 minutes. And I'm not watercoloring in bed. But I do it with my fountain pen in waterproof ink, and I try to make it, for myself a lot of the time. And I just find that that's a good way to overcome, because if you're not thinking about how other people view it, you can kind of experiment more, and you can just work through things and be less judgmental.
Right.
And then later, if you decide to share, that's a different thing. But I feel like trying to create for yourself is such a huge thing. And doing it on a daily basis has really helped me. When I started making art daily in various ways, it's always been, that's where I experienced my exponential growth creatively.
Oh, definitely. And I actually really love the language of diary, because I think that it helps with the personalization. And because, some of us will say visual journal, art journal, and so I think that we need a little bit of help reminding ourselves that it's not for public consumption, right? This is just yours. And so I love the idea of changing the language sometimes from visual journal, art journal to diary. That you can work in it then, either in a comic or with your doodle or your words or your letters or whatever. Just realizing that it's a tool to expand creativity, because we talk about it a lot on this show, that I get that question, as I'm sure you do, which is, Joleen, how are you so creative? How did you get to become so creative? And I honest to goodness believe that it is a practice. Right? Like, I am more creative the more I make, the more I play, the more I dabble. And I don't know, thoughts on that? Where do you think creativity comes from?
100%. I mean, I think it's habit, but that's like, I do think you have to have something inside, some desire to create. But I do think in terms of actually getting stuff done and it, like I made a comic sort of about how it feels like the more I create, it's just a fountain. Like it gets bigger. Like I used to be scared that I would have too few ideas, and that it's the opposite is true. It's so many ideas, and that's the struggle.
Oh, for me too. I have more ideas than time. The list is so long of like all the things I would like to try to do and explore. So, okay, so what about this? So, Kay, what if I have this desire, but I don't really believe in my skills as a drawer?
Yeah.
Is there still hope for me? Can I still play in this space?
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is like comics could be collage. Like you could, I've seen collage comics, which are so cool. So you could just do something as simple as like cutting out a heart, from a cool piece of paper and doing a speed bubble to it. And then the next panel, the heart's doing something else. Maybe you add arms and legs, and it can be as simple as that, or you draw it. I mean, I think there's comics has such a wide breadth of different visual storytelling techniques. I mean, you could do comics with stickers. If you have a big sticker collection, you could totally, just use those stickers as characters. And, there's all sorts of of ways to
I
go.
love these ideas. I would have never thought of that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So it becomes more accessible for those of us who might feel, because I have that. Like I've said a million times, like, you want me as your Pictionary partner, not because I can draw, but I am a guesser. I am such a good guesser, but I am a terrible drawer. Can't even draw a cat. So
Right. But I
find
think
great relief in this.
yeah. I mean, but it's also just like, I think people, it gets too complicated, like in their heads, because you could just have a character that's a circle. Everybody who can write
Right.
can draw a circle, and you just put a little face on it
Yes.
and draw some arms, and you have a character, right? Like, and it's maybe waddling along, and the goofier it is,
Right.
the
And I've seen some of those comics and I have really loved them. So I love that idea. That is awesome. And speaking of ideas, we did ask our audience for some questions in preparation for your visit today. And we got this one from Lena. What's your favorite part about working in watercolor for comics? And what's the trickiest part?
Well, one of my favorite parts, I mean, obviously just how it looks and how it like how the watercolors combine in surprising
Mhm.
ways or
Yeah.
just beautiful ways. Like I feel like my line art is fine, but it's not my
Sure.
strength. Whereas as soon as I add color, it just comes to life and it's so much
Right.
more expressive. And it's just really remarkable to me, the kind of the emotion that it adds to
Yeah.
the page. But then also it helps me with my perfectionism, because if you're digitally coloring, you could go infinitely. You can just do
Sure.
so many iterations, and you can erase and all these things.
Yeah.
But with watercolor, if you keep working the page, it just disintegrates. The paper
Yeah.
disintegrates. So it really helps, I think, for me to be able to let go.
Right. Right. So when you came from, okay, so you download it and you're on the watercolor paper now. Did you have some of those parameters for yourself as far as like, because you could print it again, right? And do it again. Did you
Um,
do that? Did you stick?
Right. Well, so what I do first is that I print them at so I have my line art
Yeah.
on my computer, and it'll eventually be, maybe 18 inches wide for a double page spread.
Yeah.
But I print it out at maybe 2 inches wide on watercolor
Mm.
paper. And then I just test out different colors on that.
Yeah.
So I print out each page 2 or 3 times, and then I test out the colors that I'm thinking of using. And then I line them up to see how they feel, like kind of
Mhm.
sequentially. Because if I have a shift in mood or just a shift in scene, I want the
Mhm.
colors to feel, cohesive or just disjointed, depending on the effect that I'm going for.
Well, so the colors in this graphic novel are amazing. So was that a limited palette, or did you like, so how did you, like, the palette is amazing. I think it's so emotional. And it's like the drawings are great, but boy, the color, it's incredible. So what was your process behind that?
Yeah. So, like so many things, the limited color palette and the
Yeah.
watercolor came out of a project and constraints. And so it was my previous book, The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
I had never watercolored, ever really. I mean, maybe in elementary school. And I was working on The Great Gatsby, and I was like, what kind of coloring technique should I use? Digital doesn't feel right for a story set
Right.
in the 1920s. Color is so important symbolically.
Yeah.
And so a friend I was doing critique with recommended I try watercolor, and I just bought some cheap watercolors and did a test, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is it." Like, it's not there yet, right? Like this is what I mean, where when it's stuck in
Yeah.
my head and
Yeah.
then seeing it on the page, I'm like, "Oh, this would work." And so I just decided to do that, and I did like YouTube tutorials, and I just played around. Like, I don't feel like I'm like an expert in watercolor by any means, but I'm very confident with experimenting and
Right.
trying things out. And then the other thing about that was I had a really limited like timeline, because Gatsby was coming into the public domain, and we really needed to get the book done by
Mm.
then, because there was going to be a lot of publicity we'd miss out on if it
Right.
wasn't.
Right.
And so I like limited color palettes. So I
Yeah.
chose limited color palettes so that I could get it done in time, because it's faster, and then because I enjoy it. And then that's always what people notice is the color. So it's
I
great.
my mind is blown, first of all. And it's such an inspiring story, crafty friends, listen to this. So self-taught, like most of us are, and kind of new to the medium. And look at this amazing thing you made. I mean, it's incredible. That like some practice, some stick-to-itiveness, a limited palette, a vision, testing, and look at where it landed. It's amazing. Like I feel like there's hope for me because I struggle with watercolor. Like I have really great friends who are leaders in this industry in the crafty influencer space. And Kay, I try and try and try. And I think that I lack patience because I get it too wet. It runs, it doesn't do that pretty bleeding thing where they merge together and I get frustrated. But it's so inspiring to hear the repetitive testing is a big part of it.
Yeah, totally. And I think in some ways it's easier for a book because it's like, this is just one page of 238 in Tuck Everlasting. And so there is sort of like a, you have to get it done and move on.
That's right.
And I work on maybe 10 pages at once. So like 5-page spreads so that when I glaze, I put down, say a wash of gold is often what I use. Quinacridone gold is usually my go-to. And then, while that's drying, I work on another page and I just kind of rotate between them. And it's I
can't wait to get my copy, honestly, because like I saw it, online and I loved it, but I can't wait to hold it. Like, I just can't wait to like have it in my hands and be like, I know this person. I'm so excited. Okay. So I did warn you that my people who I love we are so into supplies and we buy them even when we don't need them because it's just part of being a crafter. So do you have like go-tos in this space for brushes or watercolor brands or like of your supplies, which ones bring you the most happiness?
Sure. So I did all of the Great Gatsby graphic novel using Winsor Newton watercolor paint, which worked fine. But then for Tuck Everlasting, I switched to Daniel Smith. I liked the colors. I felt like they were more vibrant and just kind of, I don't know, they just spoke to me more. And so that's kind of the paint I generally use. I've tried more naturally pigmented ones, but the problem with that is I'm using so much paint, like I'm covering so many pages that like I need things that are highly pigmented. I can't like otherwise it's just I have to buy so much paint.
Right.
But what really changed things for me was my watercolor palette. So I'm gonna hold it up. But so for Gatsby, I just used a simple palette that kind of, is like a book, like you close it and then you open it and the paint's on one side and there's like a mixing thing on the other. Yeah. And this did not work for how my brain
worked. Too limiting.
Yeah. And so then just from looking online, I discovered this really cool watercolor palette that's circular. And so in the center are removable trays where you can have your color palettes.
Nice.
And then around the outside is your paint. And so you can and they're all in little removable trays. So you can move your paint to different places. So like ones I'm using right now, right next to each other. And then this palette in the middle is removable. So I will just keep, I'll just refresh this when I want the colors.
Right.
And I just spray, do a little spray and then I can use that palette.
That's so cool. Like, I love that so much. I was just messing around yesterday and I had a little palette with like maybe 4 wells. I'm like, and I made a mess. I got it everywhere. It like just did not work for me. So is that a thing that you think we could link in the show notes? Is that like an Amazonian kind of thing or?
It is from, I think it's just some random guy who makes these. The website, I mean, love the product. The website looks like it was made in 1990. It's called Robax, Robax. I think the guy's name is Robert.
I love this.
Robax.
Okay.
We can link it in the show notes. I really like the palette. It's like It's great.
I would love if Robert would get like this influx of orders and just be like, what's going on? Like, I love this idea. This is so awesome. I love the stacking too. That's quite satisfying to see how you like had a little, for those of you listening and not watching, it's like a little stacking situation and you just move the whole little stack and it's like got wells on the inside and then around the outside. I mean, what is that? Like 25 different
36. I never fill it up because I work in a limited palette, but then each little tray that contains the paint, I write down the name of the paint on it so that I remember.
Right.
And that, I don't know why, it's hard because part of me likes to tell people like tools don't matter, just like create
of course.
But then you find the right tool and it totally
it's so exciting.
Yeah. And
1000%. Yeah. I recently just got into, so I struggle with watercolor because it's, I think it's a patience problem for me. Like I want the blending to happen faster than it does. I watch my friends do it and it's like they have a really soppy brush and then they make a brush stroke and there's like 5 colors in there. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And I can never really achieve it. Like I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And so I've been playing around with watercolor pencils. And I think I finally hit a stride that works for me because I can deliberately put color where I want it and then activate it with a brush. And I'm getting there. I have to go in my own Joleen way because apparently I can't follow the directions to do it the way everyone else does.
True for all of us, right?
Right. There's room for all skills, but yeah. So I just got like graphite watercolor pencils. I believe they're Stadler product. And I've been having quite a lot of fun with that. Just, getting rid of brush strokes and blending and like, it's fun. It's super fun.
Well, and what was interesting now that I'm remembering this when I was experimenting with coloring for Gatsby, at first I bought watercolor pencils like you have because I thought maybe that would be easier than paint. But then I realized for my work, it was actually harder to accomplish what, like I thought it was easier, but it was actually harder. And the opposite is true for you, which is why it's so great that there are so many tools out there for different creative brains.
Oh, exactly. Okay. So there's one other question, but I think we kind of already got to it because it was about any advice for artists who struggle with perfectionism or self-doubt. We talked about it a few moments ago, but again, what are your highlights about this?
Yeah, I think some of it, like I'm also a big believer in self-compassion. And that also, when I really started reading and practicing self-compassion as sort of there's 2 psychologists, Kristen Neff and Chris Germer, who do the mindful self-compassion kind of, they have centers, they have books, like it's kind of a whole thing. But that honestly was probably the biggest game changer for me artistically and as a person, because I was just so hard on myself. And part of it is just like noting emotions. So like, wow, I'm feeling perfectionism right now, or I'm feeling really judgy right now, or I'm having a lot of self-doubt, and then not judging that, just kind of noting it and being with it. And then the next part that I kind of tell myself is just like, I'm human, like humans make mistakes, humans doubt themselves, like other people are doing this right now. And that's been like a big help for me. And then just trying to show kindness to myself, which is hard, I think, at times.
I love every single word you said. And it reminded me that, something that I do that I think it's just like I don't even really realize I do it until like I had one of those awareness moments where I was like, oh my gosh, that's something I did. And that was actually kind of smart. When I'm looking at some work and I get that, and I love what you're saying about just give it a name, just call it what it is. Like that at that moment is perfectionism. Okay. I identify, I see. But I put the work away and then I come back later and I'm just like, what the hell was wrong with me? like this is amazing, but like in the moment, that perfectionism, Joleen, she just had a lot to say. But later on, she's quieter.
Right. Well, and that's time is a huge, I think, huge and interesting. So I do these diary comics, like I said, but then often I share them in my Substack newsletter. And I try not to share them. Like I sometimes share them months after I created them because because at the time I'm like, oh, this is mediocre. And then later I come back and I'm like, oh, this is great, but the other thing I tell myself, and I tell clients that I work with, is like, you are not the best judge of your own work.
Right.
And that's so true. Like we are often the harshest judge of our own work. So,
yeah. we have this like family lore, this story in our family. My son Charlie is a death metal drummer. I don't know if you're familiar with death metal, but oh my gosh, it is like if you go to an event and you are not wearing noise canceling headphones, it will grab your spine and like rattle you. Like it is like a jolt to the central nervous system. And in my opinion, the drummer is like the best and the most interesting thing to watch. So Charlie is incredibly talented. It's like running a marathon every single time. Both hands, both feet, sometimes his head, all things doing something different. And he's been doing drumming since he was 8. And so I often say to him, Charlie, you are so talented. This is amazing. Like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that like I have a child with this gift. Like, oh my God. And he'll be like, Mom, calm down. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that hard. And I'm like, okay, that's really weird. But then flash forward where he was complimenting me on my artwork. And I was like, Charlie, honey, thank you. But honestly, it's not that big of a deal. Like anybody could do this. And he was just like, what? And he's like pulling out, from the, wait a minute. It's not hard for you, Mom, because you're talented. Just like drumming isn't hard for me because I'm talented. And I was like, oh my God.
Yes. Also, you're like, I did a good job as a parent.
I know, right? I'm amazing. Yeah.
I would also add, like, both of you have put in the reps. Like, I think about this. Like, I am an athlete, but I like was a competitive athlete in high school and college. And sometimes I see people who I feel a lot of like competitiveness with, and I'm just like, they have made literally 2,000 more pages of books than I have.
Yeah.
They've put in way more reps. Of course they're better than I am. Like there is, and also just like, I think you had probably natural talent, which is one of the reasons you're drawn to it. And he did to music. Like I could never, like, I just don't have a talent for music, but I also think it's like, plus you did the work.
Exactly.
And that's a big part.
Exactly. But don't you just love it when like I could see, you can see it in someone else sometimes, and you cannot see it in yourself. And I think that for me, like he and I had that in common. I couldn't see it in myself. He couldn't see it in himself. And it wasn't until we had this, Freaky Friday moment where we like bashed together, where we were like, oh, okay, that was really insightful.
I love that. It's also just I think it is so important to have people around you who will call you out on things like that.
Yeah. Definitely. And a 21-year-old death metal drumming son. Oh yeah. Built in. Right. Oh, okay. Thank you so much for being here. And let me just, before we get into our final segment of the show, I want to make sure that everyone knows where to find you. So I'm going to link it in the show notes. But just tell us, where is the best place to find you? Remind us the best place to find the graphic novel adaptation of Tuck Everlasting that comes out on September 2nd. So just give us that rundown one more time.
Sure. So one of the best places to find me is on Substack. I do a weekly newsletter called Creating Comics, and I will, share all of these tips and through comic form often that we're talking about today. And then I'm on Instagram at Woodman-Maynard, just my last name, all one word. And then for my graphic novel, it's available to pre-order wherever books are sold. So you could go to your local independent or Amazon or wherever you buy your books and purchase one. And if you want a signed copy, they'll ship, but it's Red Balloon Bookshop, which is a St. Paul bookstore.
which is where I hope everybody goes, because that would be doing your good deed for the day. So that would be absolutely lovely. So I will be sure to link all of that in the show notes. And then before we let you go, we have to get to our favorite segment. And I know you are familiar, so you can either elaborate, give us one-word answers, but it's just one more way to get to know you even a little bit better. We do it every time. It's our favorite because we're nosy. So, so we start easy, maybe. So Kay, what is your favorite word? And it could just be today. Like, I know these things change. Like, it might not be your forever favorite word. Like, favorite word today.
I mean, I always think about cellar door because that's supposed to be the word that's so beautiful. And I think it is really beautiful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cellar door.
Cellar door, to people who don't speak English, that's the most beautiful sounding like phrase. And so that's often what I think of.
Love it.
But I would think today, clouds are what I'm thinking about.
Okay. I love it. Do you have one then that is your least favorite word?
I feel like, oh gosh, least favorite word. I feel like, just like words that mean like
gross things, yucky things.
Yeah, yucky things like puke, like it sounds really bad.
Right. For me, they are, I stick to it. Like, this has been my least favorite for quite some time. Again, goes back to that child of mine that I do love very, very much. But he calls me bro. And I just like, it's like, it just, like bro, bruv, bra, like all of that. And I'm just like, child. It's almost like it's like a habit, and I like want to shake him and be like, knock that loose, so he can be like mom, mommy, mom, mother, like any of those. I also respond. Okay, right? Okay, so what about this one? This is so important because it's lunchtime. So, okay, what is the best kind of sandwich?
Well, the sad thing about my life is that I have one of the, I mean, people have it a lot worse, but I can't eat gluten or dairy. And so I don't actually have sandwiches. I mean, probably for at least a decade, really, because gluten-free bread, I mean, it exists, but it is not good.
Right.
And same with vegan cheese. It like exists, but it is not good. And so what I do is I really like a seed oat cracker with avocado on it and like tomatoes and bacon, would probably be like the best thing.
Okay, but as we talk about that, so you got the crunchy,
yes,
right? You got the savory with the avocado, you got a little bit of salt, and then you got the bacon. Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
I can get behind that. Well, we are getting really close to tomato season, and what that means is my neighbor's garden is prolifically producing tomatoes. And so I'm getting pretty fired up about BLT season.
Yes.
I don't really like bee, which I know is weird. Like, everybody loves bee, but I don't really. I like turkey bacon, but I don't really like bacon.
Yeah.
But what I do like is my husband, the chef, he makes his own mayonnaise. So I like that, and I like avocado on there, and I also like, he also makes pickled onions. Have you ever
I have pickled onions, and I love pickled things, and they're just so delicious.
It's that acid, I think, that just makes everything better. But pickled onions on a BLT changes your life. It's so good. And as a gluten-free, dairy-free person, I would think that would be a thing that would just bring a little bit of joy to that cracker. Yeah. We're going to plop that on the top. All right. So, do you believe that animals are scary? And if so, is there a scariest animal?
I mean, I think anything is scary. I mean, probably humans are the scariest animals, but I would say, like, I think the most, like, I love, like, I did a graphic memoir at one point where I drew myself as a bear. So, like, I love bears, but I also think that's probably been the most scared that I've ever been. Like, I trail run. And so I've been trail running a couple times and run into bears, and they're not the scary, this is like black bears. They're not the scary bears, but just like your heart rate starts going.
Sure. It's unknown, right? Yeah.
And so that's kind of what comes to mind, but also moose. I mean, again, you can see where I live. Like, I'm in Minnesota, but I also lived in New Hampshire and Maine.
Right.
Moose are terrifying when they're staring down at you.
And they're so big, and there's no like there's no charming a moose, you know, there's no soft voice or like
No. And, like, bears are running away, like, in all of
right.
these instances, they're gone, right? But the
Yeah.
moose is just like, "What are you gonna do? I'm just gonna stand here, and I'm, 1,000 pounds or whatever."
I'm gonna agree with you that I gotta say, like here in southern Minnesota, we do not have those. But I also didn't think that we had bear. But recently, the husband was walking across the driveway and saw one out of the corner of his eye, and he like a bear, and he didn't believe his own eyes really because it's so unusual and rare. So I quickly went to the community Facebook page where you verify all local news. And, and sure enough, there had been a sighting in our area. So I think it would be scary for me just because it would be so unusual and I don't have the skill set. And I would like my instinct would be to be charming when really it should be to be hazing, I would imagine, like you see on like those outdoor wilderness shows where they're like, hey bear, and then the bear runs or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
totally.
Yeah. So what about this? So like you are an artist and it's your profession and your day job, and like how does that feel?
I mean, it feels great, like, I feel so incredibly lucky. I think, like, sometimes I just pause and I'm like, "Wow, like,
Yeah.
this is incredible." But also it comes with so much, anxiety and uncertainty, especially around, like, finances, and
Yeah.
it's just you don't kinda know how it's gonna shake up. But I think, at the essence, like, being an artist to me just means making art, which is such a beautiful thing and that I wish more people would do and not, like, kinda judge themselves or feel like they even need to do it
Mm.
professionally, that there's just so much beauty that comes from making art and
Yeah.
just the action of it. And that it like, and there's all these studies that show that people who make art and consume art are like happier and less stressed and all these things. And I just really wish that people wouldn't give it up when they were children.
Right.
And that's
Right.
all that makes me sad.
I think that like I I have come to understand about myself that I feel a little bit incomplete in the days where I don't make something. And
Totally.
even if that's just making a little bit of progress, um, I feel the most at home when I am able to reach and do and try and practice. And like I sneak in little, like I just did a little watercolor before I turned on the show, like I just did a little, just did a little blending, because it just, I feel so much more like myself when I am able to do a little something every day. And it doesn't need to be one of my great big projects that take months. It sometimes is just a little, even if it's a doodle, just a little, I need a little taste to feel most like myself.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, other than this profession, is there one that you would like to attempt?
I mean, one that I would like to attempt. I mean, this is so close. I'm always kind of intrigued by children's books just because
Sure.
they are close, but they're quite a different medium and such a
Yeah.
different storytelling. And so like picture books is
Yeah.
what I mean. But I think if I was going to do a completely different profession, I would I would be a therapist.
Mhm,
Has always
mhm,
been kind of the natural thing. And
mhm.
honestly, sometimes the comics coaching there feels a little bit like there's that element of therapy, but I've always
Sure.
been super interested in psychology
Yeah.
and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think for me, I don't know if it would be, I say welder sometimes, but um, it's creative, but I'm really, really accident prone and clumsy. So I can't do that and still have a family to support my every decision. So, so welder is on the back burner. I'll just admire my friend Tammy, who is a welder. So I think that for me, it would be if I would like to do like more integration of art into like I wish I could do more. Okay, I'm sounding stupid. What I mean is like an airport installation. Like I would love to have a large scale installation. And one, I don't know how that happens. Two, I don't know if that's a thing, but I think about that. Like, what is a thing that I could do that would represent my artwork in some kind of way like that? So I think about that a lot.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I have no answers, but it's something that I think about. Is there a profession that you would not like to do?
I mean, like accounting, lawyer. I mean, like
your face. I love your face on that answer. It's like your eyes crossed and you're like, oh.
I mean, I really don't do well with numbers. Like I can't keep them in my head. Like disjointed facts are really hard for me to like. So it's like there are so many professions that would be horrible.
Right. Like I'm not your person.
Right.
I think for me, anything 9 to 5-ish where I have to be contained. I don't know that I would like thrive there. I think I need just a little bit more. I need a little more space, a little more elbow room.
Totally. Yeah.
So, okay, since this is the Happy Time Craftcast, so finally, what does indeed bring you the most happiness?
I mean, what came to mind immediately was watercolor. Like just putting the paint down does give me so much happiness. And I remember that prompt was done in like a meditation that I was part of, and watercolor came up and I was like, why am I not doing this every single day? Like if this is what comes up. And I don't watercolor every single day. And it's a question for me. And I think some of it is honestly just like that you have to get the water out and that you have to
or that you have to change the water. That's
yeah. Exactly.
Like I go with dirty water for like way longer than I should.
Yeah, so that is something that certainly gives me a lot of pleasure. And nature, being out in nature, trees give me so much pleasure, being under leaves.
Yeah.
That also is something I need to feel kind of whole.
Right. Well, I think that is a really great way for us to like wrap up our conversation because boy, does that tie us up with a nice little bow. So thank you. Thank you so much. And honestly, Kate, congratulations. Like this is really exciting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I love chatting with you, Joleen.
Oh my gosh. I just, like a person I know did this really amazing thing. And it's just so awesome. So listeners, I will be sure to link everything in the show notes so that you can find it, so that you can get your own copy. And I know that we will all do our best to be supportive and share the word and all of that kind of stuff. I do hope that you will join me on my next episode. My gosh, you guys, it's number 60. Kate Rebecca Leach will be with me. And so Kate is a watercolor artist from the UK, and she has such an interesting like technique, and she kind of works in the abstract, and she has like this royally rich, beautiful color palette. She is nature inspired. She uses a lot of gold embossing, and she began during lockdown, so kind of new to it as well. She sold work in 35 countries, has a great big following on social media. She leads retreats in Europe. She published a book, like another big deal, coming to us on the next Happy Time Craftcast, which will be August 13th. So I know you'll all join me then. And big thanks to Kay Woodward-Maynard for joining us today. Super duper good luck with this launch. I hope it goes really, really well.
Thank you so much, Joleen.
My pleasure. And everyone listening, you stay happy, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.